We still do 7 NUFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications options. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe. And it feels alright where the worlds collide. Manipulation stands to make us break. What time is that coming over you? You wish it upon a star. You wish it on a star. You are, you are, you are. You fight back, it's an all-out attack. It feels like I've been taken on the world's machine. Because I want it more than anyone can dream. You look back and it's all in the past. You tell me how you live by all the things you do. Well, you can be yourself, but maybe I'm not you. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all.
Good morning, welcome along to NUFC Matters. Here we are. It is the fixture announcement. It's just turned 9 o'clock, and Newcastle United, who will they be playing on all the key fixtures? When will Newcastle United be in derby action? All of those questions can be answered on them. We'll get your opinions as well in the chat as to what you think of Newcastle United's fixtures and who they are going to face in those early days. So first game of the season is Aston Villa away, and that is followed by Liverpool at home and then Leeds United away. What a tough opening gambit. We never do well at Villa. Liverpool at home, of course, that wonderful 3-3 draw we all remember. And then Leeds United away, a baptism of fire for Leeds United as their return to the Premiership. Again, what will happen with them? The first derby, Newcastle will take on Sunderland in December, and that'll be at the Stadium of Light. That will be on the 13th of December. And we'll have to wait for the return at St James's Park. We've got to wait until March. That is going to be 21st of March. Sunderland at home, coming into the end of the season fixtures. That gives us Brighton at home, Nottingham Forest away. Nottingham Forest had such a good season last season. West Ham United at home and Fulham away. How many times have we played Fulham away in recent years, whether it be in the Championship or the Premier League? Always an interesting fixture that. Some great games. As for the Boxing Day fixture, it's something we always look for. Well, Newcastle aren't playing on Boxing Day, and Newcastle will be playing on the 27th of December. and that is Manchester United away at Old Trafford. The final game of 2025 will see us travel to Burnley away. So 2 away fixtures over that Christmas period. Going into the Christmas period, we've got Chelsea at home. As for the start of the new year, we don't play on New Year's Day. That fixture used to be something that we all used to look forward to if you're a fan of a certain vintage. But Crystal Palace at home on the 3rd of January will be the first match, followed by Leeds United at home on the 7th. And I'm imagining that somewhere amongst that busy fixture list, we will be cramming the 3rd round of the FA Cup as well. Champions League fixtures, of course, yet to be confirmed. That'll have to be slotted in as well. So that fixture list will, of course, take a little bit of a different look. You'll also be able to chuck the later rounds of the League Cup into there. Obviously, defending the League Cup, the Carabao Cup, after last year's win. But yes, I don't know what I make of this fixture list. I've got to be perfectly honest. Fixture lists are always exciting. It's always an exciting time, especially when we've had no football to enjoy for the last couple of weeks, unless you're a Club Cup football team supporter. And yeah, I mean, first impressions for me, Newcastle United have a tough start. August is not easy. Aston Villa away, Liverpool at home, Leeds away. Very, very tough. It's a 12:30 kickoff. Looks like Newcastle United's first game of the season will be is that going to be a TV game? It looks like it's a 12:30 kickoff. Yeah, so it looks like Newcastle already selected for TV before we've had time to absorb the fixtures. Let's just dig a little bit deeper. September. So let's go through them. For those of you who maybe aren't at your phone or haven't been able to get the internet, you might be driving. Aston Villa away, Liverpool at home, Leeds away, as already mentioned. That's in August. September, Wolves at home, Bournemouth away, Arsenal at home. So already in those first 2 months, Newcastle playing Aston Villa, Liverpool and Arsenal. We'll have a real feel for who's on form, who could be, who potentially could be putting a run together and who could potentially be looking at Champions League places, or dare even say it, a league title. Should be interesting. October, we then have Nottingham Forest at home, Brighton away and Fulham at home. Followed in November by West Ham away, Brentford away, Manchester City at home and Everton away. Into December, an interesting month, December, certainly. Tottenham at home and Burnley at home gets us off to a good start. Sunderland away, Chelsea at home, Manchester United away and Burnley away. January, Crystal Palace at home, Leeds at home, Wolves away, Aston Villa at home and Liverpool away. February sees Brentford at home, Tottenham away, Manchester City away and Everton at home. March is Manchester United at home, Chelsea away and Sunderland at home. April, Crystal Palace away, Bournemouth at home and Arsenal away. And May is Brighton at home, Nottingham Forest away, West Ham United at home and Fulham away. Incidentally, Sunderland's first fixtures are West Ham at home, Burnley away, Brentford at home, Crystal Palace away, Aston Villa at home and Nottingham Forest away. So West Ham at home, Sunderland's opening fixture, followed by Burnley away. And I mean, I guess Sunderland fans, depending on who they bring in, will be looking at that and thinking, well, if we can get some points on the board, now's the time to do it. Brentford at home, again, another game where they, potentially could be looking at get something. I would have said the fixture list was slightly kinder to Sunderland than it has been to Newcastle. Okay, let's get into your comments. Welcome to everybody on Twitter as well. If it's the first time that you've listened to NUFC Matters, get yourself onto YouTube. If you just hit the subscribe button, we do 7 shows a week. We've been going on since 2020. We've got 53,000 subscribers and we still do 7 shows a week, a variety of shows. Geordie Toomba Life, good morning. He says, morning, Steve. Many saying it's Villa away, but we'll see. Well, it was. And there was a leaked fixture list. When is there never something leaked on the internet these days? A leaked fixture list, and it was correct. I only got that about 8:30. Who leaks these things? Why did they leak them? What do they benefit from it? I really don't know. But yes, the leaked fixture list that I received, and I'm sure many more did on WhatsApp, etc., was the correct one. Just coming up on Sky, I'm just watching Sky as a broadcast as well. Arsenal away at Manchester United on the opening weekend. Liverpool begin their title defence against Bournemouth at Anfield. Liverpool always seem to get an easy game. Everton will play Brighton in their first Premier League match at the Hill Dickinson Stadium, the new stadium, of course. That's on the second weekend of the season on August the 23rd. So that's the big news, I guess, coming out of the fixtures. I'll come back to your comments in a second. Here's the Premier League opening fixtures. Liverpool versus Bournemouth. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff on the 15th, live on Sky Sports. August the 16th sees Aston Villa take on Newcastle, 12:30, live on Sky Sports. Brighton versus Fulham at 3 o'clock. Nottingham Forest versus Brentford, 3 o'clock. Sunderland versus West Ham, 3 o'clock. Tottenham versus Burnley, also at 3 o'clock. Wolves versus Manchester City will take place at 5:30, live on Sky Sports. On to the Sunday, Chelsea versus Crystal Palace, 2 o'clock, live on Sky Sports. And Manchester United taking on Arsenal, 4:30, live on Sky Sports. August the 18th, which will be the Monday, Leeds will take on Everton at 8 o'clock, live on Sky Sports. Apologies, Newcastle's fixture will be taking place, I would presume, then on TNT Sports. It's a 12:30 kickoff. But obviously it didn't say live on Sky Sports on the ticker tape, so I presume that must be on TNT. Okay, morning, Steve. Decent fixture list, in my opinion, says Roger. Yeah, Roger, look, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who you play and when you play them. You've got to just play at your best like we did last season. And from our perspective, we've just got to crack on and do the best we can. But yeah, from my perspective, I think it's a tough start, Roger, if you want my honest opinion. Morning, Gary. Morning, Ian. How are you feeling about the fixture list? Roger says a home game on my birthday next year. Well, yeah, we all look at specific dates, don't we? It is weird when the fixtures come out. Morning, Les. I hope you're well. And someone leaked these an hour or so ago. It's just what I said before there, mate. Yeah, 100% they did, and they were correct. Ian says, do you think the Premier League are at it again with our fixtures? Ian, I'm not one for conspiracy theories. I've got to be perfectly honest. It's the luck of the draw. It is the lottery. I don't think anybody sits and painstakingly goes through the fixtures and says, let's make it as difficult for a team, as possible. I think sometimes we, as Newcastle fans, can have that kind of paranoia because of the the length of time it took for the takeover to go through. We all feel a little bit, skeptical. And I understand that. But do I think the Premier League are at it again with our fixtures? No. I think Newcastle United, have got what they've got, and the same as everybody else. It is simply the luck of the draw. Ian also says that the Mackhams will be happy. Gary says, Ian, I look at it this way. We've got to play everyone home and away, so it makes no difference these days as we're a top side now. No one will look forward to playing us. And that's a great point, well made, Gary. I genuinely believe that, that kind of attitude is right. We are a big club now. We're contenders. We're winners. And yeah, we are a fixture that other teams now will be looking at and going, oh no, we don't fancy it. On Sky at the minute, Tottenham away, Sunderland at home, Manchester United away, Liverpool at home, Nottingham Forest at home, Manchester City away. Welcome to the Premier League, Burnley. Scott Parker never gets the run of the draw, does he? That could be the quickest return to the Premiership for a manager and the quickest exit. Of course, when you look at the fixtures, you start speculating about who's going to lose their job. If I had to put some money on it now, looking at those fixtures, I'd say Scott Parker could be in big trouble. And his owner's just been on talking about money and wouldn't really say what he was going to get to invest. Will be interesting, that one. Certainly keep an eye on that. Sunderland, I've already gone through their fixtures. As they come up on the screen, I will look at it. Jules says no audio because I'm at work, but away first game, Boxing Day and last game, Fulham boat trip and Villa first up. Good old Premier League. So Jules still thinks there is a little bit of a conspiracy going on. Thomas Frank First Spurs game at home to Burnley, of course, a new manager in the dugout, and Postecoglou leaving, of course. And yeah, interesting game for him. And Ian and Jules both think this conspiracy theory is true. We'll have to see. Gary says, we're away at Forest for my birthday. Okay, good stuff. Philip says, doubt we'll play Sunderland at home on the 21st of March, as we'll be back at Wembley the following day for the Carabao Cup final game. That's the spirit, Philip. That's the spirit. Definitely got to feel confident going in and defending that cup. Newcastle will certainly be going all out to defend the Carabao Cup of that. I've got no doubt at all. Whilst we're talking about next season, Clinton Morrison, I think it is, sitting on Sky Sports this morning, and they are discussing the new Premier League ball, which is there, a purple and white number. And Dave says, has Arteta passed the new ball? Yeah, it's all to do with the ball. Certainly is. Not much else happening really as far as the fixtures are concerned. So let's just talk a little bit about Barry's spreadsheet. Now, those who are regular viewers to NUFC Matters will know that Newcastle United's constantly linked in transfer windows with numerous players, and Barry Hogan, who does the fans forum, painstakingly puts together a spreadsheet for us throughout each transfer window. And we always are interested to see who Newcastle actually signed from these now and how many players were actually linked with. Now, in the previous window, we were linked with no fewer than 215 players, and Newcastle signed none of them. So many of you who follow us on social media will be looking at this going, you know, why is Steve on social media putting this comments out saying nobody knows what, you know, is going on behind the scenes other than the club? Well, I'm just trying to reiterate the fact that is still not changed. Newcastle United keep a very closed shop and very little gets out with regards to transfers. So people who are speculating, clickbaiting, call it what you want, whether it's a respected journalist, a YouTuber, or a podcaster, whatever you want to call them, nobody really knows what is going on. It's okay to have an opinion for me and say, yeah, I would have him, and yeah, I would have him, but to mislead supporters is wrong. And there's a lot of that going on at the minute. But just to give you a flavour of the players that Newcastle have been linked with so far, of which, wait for it, there is 94 players we've been linked with since the opening and closing of that small window. We have been linked with, plucking some names out of Barry's list, Tammy Abraham, Johan Bayoko, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, numerous occasions, Armando Broja, Ryan Cherky, Kingsley Coleman, Jonathan David, Eberechi Eze. The list goes on. Jack Grealish, of course, Morgan Gibbs-White, Alanga, Fraser Foster, our former goalkeeper, Gregor Kobel, Mohamed Kudus, and so it goes on. Leroy Sané, Jadon Sancho, Jonathan Rowe, Marcus Rashford, Jacob Ramsey, Aaron Ramsdale. And genuinely, who on earth thinks any of these players will land at Newcastle? And then this is what drives me up the wall. It really does. It drives me up the wall. Summer, winter, whichever window, take your pick. None of them are every different. Pedro Roger, exactly. There's another one who we're being linked with. And for me, it really is just an absolute nightmare. Roger says we won't change as fans either. We are interested in player links. We are, and of course we are. But it's the speculation that I think that comes from supposed respected journalists that drives me up the wall, and I'm sure it drives a lot of you up the wall. And I've just stopped clicking on it because nobody knows other than the people who are at Newcastle United. It's as simple as that. Adam makes a good point. He says, typical, we play Sunderland after match day 6 of the Champions League. And yeah, that's the thing I mentioned earlier on. The Champions League is going to play such a big part in these fixtures because you slot those games into those fixtures. You slot the League Cup defence into those fixtures and slot the FA Cup in, it suddenly takes a completely different look. And as you progress in the cup competitions, it's going to change. We know there's going to be 8 Champions League games as well. You've got to slip them in, and yeah, that is going to be very, very different. A very different look to the fixture list. Of course, Newcastle will do that. They will update their website, I'm sure, to reflect that as well. It'll give you a bit more of a clear idea. And some of those games, some of those fixtures will have a different slant on them when you see that we've got a Champions League slotted in, beforehand, because you've got the travel, etc. Home games, maybe not so bad, but where we get in the Champions League is going to change things in that fixture list massively. Les says the clickbait culture seems to be growing at the speed of light from outlets you wouldn't have expected to. Yeah, I mean, I saw this yesterday as well. There was something on which wasn't transfer related. It was about Paul Mitchell, and you saw 2 journalists breaking the story about Paul Mitchell. One saying that he'd left, and one saying that he'd stayed, and it was that just shows you there is misinformation, being circulated on a regular basis. And for me, who can you trust? You can only trust the club. You can only trust Newcastle United and listen to what they say, and when they say it. So for me, I won't be getting drawn into it. We don't speculate on this podcast or this program. I'll simply be waiting until we see the person on the pitch with a black and white shirt on or a black and white scarf in the air, and wait for the wait for the announcement from the club. I think it's the best thing, all in all, for everybody to do. Jason says it's all rubbish. I disconnect with NUFC during transfer windows because it is a waste of time. Yeah, you just sit back and wait until the club announce it, mate. It is the best policy. Sky at the moment, just covering Newcastle's fixtures. As I mentioned earlier, for those of you just tuning in, Aston Villa away is our first game. 12:30 kick-off live on TNT. Liverpool at home, Leeds away, Wolves at home. That's your first 4. Chelsea, incidentally, Crystal Palace at home for them. West Ham away, 2 derbies, 3 derbies in a row, 4 derbies. Fulham at home, Brentford away, and then Manchester United away and Brighton at home. A few derbies for Chelsea to get their teeth into. Aston Villa, well, they've got us at home, of course. Brentford away, Crystal Palace at home, Everton away, Sunderland away, Fulham at home. You'd have to say that's a fairly decent start for them. Nottingham Forest, Brentford at home, Crystal Palace away, West Ham at home. First 3 fixtures. Brentford have got Nottingham Forest away, Aston Villa at home, Sunderland away, Chelsea at home, Fulham away, and Manchester United at home. Yeah, I see where this conspiracy theory comes in from, Jules and Ian. To be honest, when you hear some of those other teams as fixtures, Aston Villa have got a nice little start there as well. Gary says, I think it's the money, advertising revenue that YouTubers, journalists are interested in. The story is secondary. They like to use terms like sources close to the club. And that is a good point. Jules, I hope you're having a good day at work. Thanks for tuning in briefly, and at least you know who we are going to be playing. So Premier League fixtures announced, and now the Champions League to wait for. Really looking forward to the Champions League reveals. For me, Newcastle's focus really this season should be on qualifying for the Champions League again, going as far as they can in the Champions League. But finishing in the top 4 would be, for me, again, a successful season. I'd like to see Newcastle retain the Carabao Cup, because that is a cup that we've won. It's our first silverware in years. But yeah, I'd love to see us continue that kind of process, finishing in a Champions League position comfortably and also winning a trophy. That's my ambition for next season. I'm sure most of you would love to see another trophy, another bit of silverware. If it's not the League Cup, if we go out of the League Cup early and it's the FA Cup, so be it. But for me now, the fact that we've got that proverbial monkey off our back and we've managed to achieve the trophy in the cabinet, that's what we want again next year. So for me, I ultimately would love to see that. Gary says, I'd love to see us get your prediction from last season, Steve, the FA Cup. You know what, with the FA Cup, Gary, it's often felt as if it was our cup, and that's down to winning 3 FA Cups, in the 1950s. 51, 52, 55 was such a wonderful, wonderful period for Newcastle fans, well before my time. But that didn't stop us, as a youngster, standing outside St James's Park and getting the autographs of, those players, Bobby Cowell, Jackie Milburn, Joe Harvey, the list goes on. And for me, the FA Cup has always had a special place in Geordie's heart because of that wonderful 1950s FA Cup team. So yeah, Champions League and the FA Cup would be absolutely brilliant. It would be absolutely fantastic. So yeah, anybody who feels that, Newcastle, may have a slump because of the Champions League, I can understand that. But let's wait and see what happens in the transfer window. Let's see who Newcastle United bring in, because ultimately Newcastle United's transfer dealings this summer will dictate. We need a bigger squad. Lots of players linked, as I've already mentioned about Barry's list, but we need to have recruitments in. For me, and I've said it on the show before, and I'll say it again, I'm sure we need 4 key players in. We need at least another striker to trouble Isaac. We need at least 1 midfielder, preferably a right winger, if not somebody who can unlock the defenses of those teams we couldn't beat last season, your Brightons, your Fulhams. And we also need another defender, preferably a centre-half and a goalkeeper. If we can bring those 4, and when I say a goalkeeper, I don't mean a John Ruddy or a Vlachimidos. I mean somebody who comes in and pushes Nick Pope for that number 1 spot. Then the outgoings need to be measured, need to help with your PSR. We don't want to let any big name players go, not this season. We want to keep a hold of the Gordons, the Isaacs, the Joe Lintons, the Bruno Guimaraes. We need to keep a hold of all of those players. But we do need essentially to have at least 4 incomings. Many of you probably think more, but I think 4 would do it. I'd love to see us retain somebody like Kieran Trippier. I'd even keep Callum Wilson if he was going to be 3rd choice striker and he was going to go on a pay-as-you-play contract. Somebody who can do a job for us in those cup competitions to give other players a rest. But squad rotation is going to be so important. Mark, good morning. He says squad is far too small to compete for a cup, finish 4th, and go along in the Champions League. Yeah, I mean, this is the problem, Mark. The squad is small. We need a bigger squad, and that's where yesterday's news was interesting, because we now know that Paul Mitchell, we knew last week or the week before that he was definitely going, and we know he's going to be going, but we know that now Eddie Howe's nephew is now being moved up the ranks to help with Steve Nixon. So recruitment talks and processes have been well underway, I'm sure, with Nixon and Howe's nephew for many weeks, months, and now the business has to be done. What Newcastle do and how they do it, I don't know. I'm still of the mindset that Newcastle have used what in politics is called the dead cat scenario. I'm pretty sure they are throwing a dead cat story out and allowing it to run. Everybody in the press and media is looking in one way, whereas Newcastle are doing business in a different direction. And I still think that all of these people that Newcastle have been linked with, I'd be very surprised if we see any of those players coming in. I'd be very surprised if that happens. So for me personally, I think Newcastle will do business. I still think there's been too much smoke without fire for maybe 1 or 2 of these names to come in, but will remain to be seen. If we got Mark Gahey and Trafford in, I would be delighted. I think they're both capable of progressing at Newcastle under Eddie Howe and his coaching staff's guidance. But that's the big thing. Those players those kind of players have got Premier League experience. And yeah, Trafford wasn't a great one, but Gahey's done well. And of course, you know, they're known in the Premier League, but they also know many of the players in our squad, so it would be easy for them to slot in. You know, the other players that we have been linked with, I'd love to see an Alanga come in. I'd love to see a Gibbs White come in. Do I think we'll get them? I'll be very, very surprised if we do. We've got to get our wage structure or keep our wage structure, you know, within our boundaries, because if someone comes in who breaks the wage structure, then everybody else's contract has to be reviewed. Those who've got these clauses in where they need to get paid more than the next man, you know, it's all those little things that, you know, that come into the fray during the transfer window. So it'll be interesting. Roger says he'd like 4 starters and 2 more for the squad. Yeah, I mean, we're signing youngsters. I mean, yesterday Newcastle broke the news that they are, you know, that they'd signed or that they'd given contracts to, you know, to Leo Sahar, the fullback, the winger, Trevor and Sanusi, and Sean Need, the forward. They've all put paper to pen for new deals. There was an unspecified duration. They also announced yesterday that there was first professional contracts had been awarded to Joe Brayson, the forward. I wonder if he's a relation of Paul Brayson. I bet he is. Defensive duo as well were given their first pro contracts, Logan Watt and Luke Craggs. They're all 18 or to get to that age within the next few weeks. In the academy as well, Sam Alabi, Michael Mills and Sam Pennington have accepted scholarships, and Thomas Bryant's scholarship was extended into a 3rd year. Other news that's come out of the club this week was the cup schemes. So if you are a season ticket holder and you are wanting to go to the FA Cup games, the League Cup games and the Champions League games, well, Newcastle have now confirmed the pricing and the time frame for the season ticket holders to join cup schemes for each of the 3 cup competitions that we will be in 25-26. As was the case in previous seasons, enrolment for the Champions League, the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup schemes must be done separately, and season ticket holders can opt for 0, 1, 2 or 3. For anyone who doesn't sign up, there's no guarantee of any seat for a home tie in that competition, and the sales window will open alongside that of club members. Enrolment has to be completed by Friday week, which is June the 27th, and that's at 5 o'clock. It's a hard deadline and there's no exceptions for that. As for the pricing, well, the pricing for the 2 domestic cup competitions is unchanged from 24-25. So that's £35 and £30 for home FA Cup ties, and £25 and £20 for Carabao Cup games at St James's Park. FA Cup and Carabao Cup payments will be taken within 7 days of home games being confirmed. As for the Champions League tickets, well, the cost of them will be £70 and £60, increasing from our last time in the Champions League in 23-24, when they were £60 and £55 respectively. Regardless of when Newcastle's Champions League home games are staged, payments will be taken for those tickets on the first day of July, August, September and October. So if you are a season ticket holder and you want to do this, you can do it very easily. And there is a very easy guide to how to do it on Newcastle United fans site, nufc.com. If you just pop to their website, and they've got the links on there. Player news, well, no incomings as yet for Newcastle, you know, but obviously, as I mentioned, lots of players have been linked with Newcastle. There are a lot of players in international action, though, and Antonio Cordero, who was a signing, of course, in the mini window, he is competing at the moment with Spain under-19s, who won 3-1 against Romania, and Cordero scored a goal, which was just fantastic. We also had news coming in about Asula, who was playing for Denmark, who managed to get on the score sheet for them as well. And pretty good goals by the sounds of it. He was promoted to the starting lineup, scored a goal either side of the interval against Netherlands, turning a 1-0 deficit into a 2-1 win. Again, if you go to nufc.com, you'll be able to click on the link and see the goals that he scored. Tino Livramento, he's plying his trade not with England's first team, but with the England under-21s, which Thomas Tuchel explained was down to the fact that he wanted to give Tino Livramento a chance to, say farewell by being almost the leader of the band, and obviously defending champions progress to the quarterfinals if they avoid defeat, which is tonight against Germany. The tie will be shown live on Channel 4 from 7:30 tonight, so keep an eye out for that if you're missing football. Not directly linked with Newcastle, but Gateshead, we sometimes talk about Gateshead on NUFC Matters. National League side Gateshead have confirmed that former Newcastle player Alan Armstrong has become their new manager. I've known Alan for many years, great lad, got a soccer academy down on Teesside. He's 50 years of age. He came through the ranks at St James's Park, of course, didn't make a senior debut, but had a great career. He played for Stockport, Middlesbrough, Ipswich during his career. Had a wonderful European journey at Ipswich, if I remember rightly. It's not the first time he's had a manager's job in the Northeast. He's taken charge of Blythe, Spartans and Darlington in the past, but he has been out of management since he left Darlington back in 2023. He was also the head of the Elite Performance Football Centre at Gateshead College. So he's a great lad, Alan. I wish him all the best at Gateshead, and hope he does very, very well. When will Newcastle's first team next be in action? Well, Korea and that South Asian tour is going to be the first time you're going to see Newcastle United back in action. They take on Kupang Play Series it's a local 11 that they're going to be playing, and Spurs will be across there as well. Spurs and Newcastle seem to link up quite a lot in these tournaments, don't they? The meeting with Team K League, that'll take place on Wednesday, July the 30th. And that'll be at the Suwon World Cup Stadium. And then there'll be a kickabout against Spurs on Sunday, August the 3rd at the Seoul World Cup Stadium. So there we go. So our first friendly is the 19th of July. That's Celtic. I'm sure most of you have got your tickets for that now. 7,500 Geordies travelling up there. And then we've got potentially the games against Arsenal in Singapore, Team K League in South Korea, Spurs in South Korea, and then we've got Atletico Madrid, of course, which is the Sela Cup at St James's Park. Should be an interesting game, that one as well. We often pay respects to players that we've lost as well. Not somebody who I saw play, but Bill McKinney passed away. Born in Wallsend, Bill had to wait until 1957 for his first team chance at St James's Park. He stepped up from the reserves to play in a 3-3 draw away to Spurs. He was a first team regular in the 60-61 relegation campaign. He played at fullback, left back and right back actually, and as a centre half in the unsuccessful promotion challenges, but then he was replaced by David Craig, but he has passed away. So our thoughts with his family, of course. Let's get back to the chat and see who's in the chat. Waldo says if Gordon goes, we could maybe get 6 in. Yeah, a lot of people talking about amortization, that we could get if that happens. I don't want to sell anybody. I've got to be perfectly honest, Waldo. I'm hoping we'll see a few more of those talented youngsters training and possibly getting game time this season. That's just with regards to the players that Newcastle's contracts that they've extended. Jason says, I'd love to see us win the FA Cup and stay at St James's Park. We're already competing, so why move? Just invest in what we have. A lesson from history, never sell your soul for gold. That's an interesting concept, Jason. Yeah, and I mean, that's been the other big thing, hasn't it, on the Newcastle United front? A lack of information or announcements about a new ground. We know, of course, that there's been a petition launched against the new ground, signed by in the region of 29,000 people. It's never going to be plain sailing if you're going to talk about moving the stadium. That's never gonna go down well with people who live in the vicinity, live in the area. So I think just watch this space. Again, don't panic when you read stuff on the internet, because it's generally not true. Other sources have ulterior motives. I think it's just a case of wait and see. I understand your passion for St James's Park. I still wouldn't be adverse to building on it, but I'm not sure that's I'm not sure that's what the Saudis want to do, Jason. I've got to be perfectly honest. I think I would imagine the Saudis would love to build a new stadium on Leazes Park, and they'll do everything they can to do that, I'm sure. Good morning, Mozza. Mozza's on our second cuppa, and the washing's all out. Needed to be ready for the fixtures. That's the spirit. Cordero doing well in Spain's under 19s too. Yeah, as I mentioned, that really is doing well. John Askew, good morning. With Paul Mitchell departing, I'm far more confident of a quality window and a decent season next season. The two Howes and Steve Nixon will be singing from the same hymn sheet. Bring it on. Yeah, I really did think, that Mitchell and Howe didn't get off to the greatest start. And even though there was a polite denial of that, I think it just became more evident as time went on. So I'm with you, John. If the two Howes and Nixon work together well, then great. Although we are still being linked with sporting directors. But maybe this is a case of PIS just saying to Eddie and the team, let's see what you can do. I don't think it's a gamble at all. Look at what Eddie and Nixon brought in when Newcastle stayed up in the first season after the takeover. I think the club's in good hands with them. Mozza, thank you. I thought Joe Brayson would be Paul's son. I had a feeling. You know what? Paul Brayson was a cracking little player. You could still do it now. But if Joe Brayson's Paul's son, I'm delighted to see that. Hopefully, he gets to go a step further than his dad did. Paul didn't quite make it at Newcastle, but as a non-league player, he was absolutely mustard. Mozza says, I'd like to see Cordero and Asula get more game time with us. They'll be full of confidence at the minute. Yeah, I mean, look, these young players, we will find some diamonds in the rough, and that's the difference with bringing in youngsters. They're not all going to hit the ground running. They're not all going to have a career at Newcastle, but some of them may do enough to be, make professionals elsewhere and help us, bring in some money. So small investment, but a big return, and that's we did it with Minty. So yeah. They won't all hit the ground running and be first team players, but Mozza, I get where you're coming from. I think Asula will be, though. It's that little line that we were given, wasn't it, by Tyndall, where when Eddie was ill, where he said that Asula reminds him of a young Callum Wilson. I mean, you can't get a better compliment than that, really, because Wilson did do well in those early years at Bournemouth and did well when he came to Newcastle. But if he's half the player Wilson was, then he's going to be a good squad player, isn't he? 100%. Asula looks howled, more composed and positional play improved. I agree, Les. And Gary's going to watch the England game. I think he says, I watched that tonight. I've tried to watch the Club World Cup games, but they're reminding me of games during lockdown, zero atmosphere. Yeah, it's interesting. And they've spent, apparently there's lots of people going to these games. The crowds are good, but they're just not. They're not your standard football crowds, aren't they, Gary? That's the thing. John says, absolutely vital at any incomings. TD connects well with Eddie. If not, please stay away. And they've got to be right on and off the pitch, John. They've got to be right on and off the pitch. That's the big thing. Mozza says, saw earlier that João Pedro saying he'd rather play in London. And are we even linked with a Mozza? Is João Pedro a genuine transfer target for Newcastle? I would say not. What? Is it because he's Brazilian that we're being linked with him? I'm not 100% sure that he was a target in the first place. I really do not think João Pedro fits the the dressing room mentality of Newcastle United. I don't know the guy. I've never met the guy, but reading between the lines and watching the way that he performs and seeing what he's been like as a player, I'm not sure whether João Pedro is a genuine one. That's what I was saying earlier about Newcastle encouraging some of these stories to just run that course, because Newcastle are looking over here. You know, it's like what politicians do. Look over here while something else is going on over there. You know, I'm happy with Newcastle doing that, because the least anybody knows about any deal, the better. 100%. John says St James's can't be expanded, though. It's those pesky listed buildings. Yeah, and again, you know, I think some of us have heard the stories about Saudis owning the buildings now. And, you know, there was definitely designs, John, because when I was fans liaison officer at the club back in 25 years ago, Chief Executive David Stonehouse had designs where they could incorporate the front fascia into a new stand. So it could be, the East Stand could be rebuilt, but you would need to incorporate the front fascia of those buildings within the new stand. It would maybe be a glass atrium over the top of it. Those buildings could be offices for St James's Park, but it's the front fascia that can't be removed because they're listed. So there is ways around it, but the cost of doing that, as opposed to building a new stadium, would be frightening. You know, Newcastle aren't, they're not struggling for money, are they? You know, with their owners. So yeah, it could be interesting. Craig asking about games. Oh yeah, so Craig, maybe you've tuned in lately. Aston Villa away is Newcastle's first game, 12:30 kickoff, so it is live on TNT. Brighton take on Fulham at the same weekend. Nottingham Forest take on Brentford. Liverpool open their title defence 8 o'clock on the Friday night against Bournemouth at home. And Newcastle take on Aston Villa. Sunderland got West Ham at home, 3 o'clock kickoff. Brighton Fulham, as I said earlier, 3 o'clock. Nottingham Forest versus Brentford, 3 o'clock on Saturday. Sunderland West Ham, 3 o'clock on the Saturday. Tottenham versus Burnley, that's at 3 o'clock on Saturday. Thomas Frank's first game. Wolves take on Manchester City on the Saturday night, 5:30. And then on the Sunday, Chelsea versus Crystal Palace is your early kickoff at 2 o'clock. Live on Sky Sports. And then Manchester United will play Arsenal 4:30 live on Sky Sports. The Monday night football will be Leeds versus Everton, and that's an 8 o'clock kickoff. Craig says it'll be a struggle to win a cup or qualify for Champions League next year with no games. Yes, obviously that was something that was going on a bit earlier in the chat, but yeah, listen, Newcastle need to bring players in to compete next year. There's no doubt about that. John says, totally agree, Steve. Eddie's work on transfer is superb, definitely fit for purpose. If we've got a new sporting director, keep him away from the transfers. Good morning, Dougie. Craig says, I'm starting to believe there's a lot of smoke and mirrors at the minute. Some of the players linked make no sense. All we can do is comment on the links. Yeah. You're right. Smoke and mirrors is a good way to describe it, Craig. Villa away, first game. Last game away, Fulham. Derby's 13th to the 12th and March 21st. But somebody did make a good point earlier in the chat. That Sunderland game on March the 21st might get put back because Newcastle could be defending the cup at Wembley. John says, we've waited yonks for owners with ambition and resources, and now we've got them, we're not allowed to spend. Yeah, you couldn't make it up. Van Heck makes no sense to Gary. He's got no pace. Yeah, that's another one we're being linked with. Again, is that true? Is that, you know, where's that come from? I don't even think he's on Barry's list. I'll have to double check. But yeah, Van Heck, I'm not so sure that that's even a genuine story as far as Newcastle being linked with him. Mozza says, to be honest, I agree with Steve. Waitler at St James's Park waiting a scarf, then it's true. Les says, someone said the two players fighting at Brighton were Van Heck and Pedro. It'll be either or, not both. Interesting. Craig says, Roger, I like the speculation. At one time, it will be a decent debate regarding player suitiness. Now, if you don't happy clap every player we're linked with, you get abuse, joys of the internet. Yeah, Craig, the good old days were when you used to go to a pub and just see your mates and talk about it in the pub. And that way, there wasn't any of that. You didn't have people going outside and having a straight now over who Newcastle were going to sign. But online, it's so easy to hide behind a fake name, a false name, and just give dogs abuse, you know. And half the time, the player, you know, the people who are on these social media accounts probably don't even support the club, don't support Newcastle. They're just doing it for a bite. So yeah, avoid transfer chat online and just go down the pub with your mates. It's as simple as that. You know, and you get back to those good old days, as you call them, Craig. Definitely those were the days. But yeah. So I think I'll draw the podcast to a close. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Those of you who are on Twitter, please jump over onto NUFC Matters on YouTube and subscribe. We do 7 shows a week. It's free to subscribe. You just need to hit the subscribe button. It just means you'll get a notification as to when we go live. Again, those of you who are regulars on the show, we will be doing those were the days with George. I'll be pre-recording that. Today, the Amigos will be going live on Saturday night at 5 o'clock, and the Professionals will be live on Sunday at 5 o'clock. So spread the word. Those 2 shows will be live, and tomorrow you will have George. Me and Ben Jacobs, live tomorrow. I think it's at midday, but Ben does have a tendency to change. So hopefully me and Ben Jacobs to talk transfers tomorrow. And then Friday will be those were the days with George. And then Saturday and Sunday we'll be back live again. So fingers crossed Ben Jacobs can still do tomorrow. Should be 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock tomorrow live with Ben Jacobs to talk about transfers. Les, thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Take care. Have a good day, whatever you're doing. We'll play out with the ads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them at www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you like listening to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network or to iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. If you want to support the show, then hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the little thumb up under the video, which is the like button, or click share to share to your social media. You can also join the channel on YouTube by hitting the join button for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become an NUFC Matters member, you can go to nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. It's a £25 one-off fee. You get your pen, you get your badge, key ring, you get your beer mat and your fridge magnet and your membership card, nufcmatters.co.uk for that. And we have an event early next year, 13th of February 2026, an evening with Beardsley, Waddle and Gascoigne takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. To buy your tickets for that event, go to the box office 0191 243 1171 or Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk.